Blessings, everyone. My name is Ashley, and here with me today is Ifasami. Should I call you by your Ifasami?
Yes.
His name is Ifasami, but you can call him Greg.
Yes.
So, Greg is a medicine man. He has helped me over the past year with healing my womb, my emotional regulation, my sharpening my mind and my focus, and has taught me a lot about the nature of consciousness and philosophies about our existence and how that connects to practical ways of being in here, in existence, and in the world as well. So today, we would like to expand on the topic of breast cancer and breast cancer prevention and how we can care for our breasts and we can care for ourselves in a way that puts us in a position to
keep our system healthy and well, and gives it a generative quality to life.
Yes. And really, I found that all the things that we're going to talk about today are so connected, just as how all the systems in our bodies are connected. And so when you're practicing these things and this wisdom, it's not just going to inform you about the breast, but also about your digestion, your womb, of course, and for men,
Yes.
so your genital areas in general, for men and women. Your blood circulation,
right.
Your respiratory, all of our systems are so connected, so just in this sharing that we'll be doing,
right,
you can benefit a lot from all of what we're going to dive into.
So let's get started.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're going to talk about breast care, but before we get into breast care, let's talk about the quality that makes the breast become well. And one of the main quality is our nutrition and our thinking. If nutrition is bad, you find that you'll end up with irritation and inflammation. If our thinking is leaning to irritation, it then also creates irritation and inflammation within the body. And it varies on different levels based on the different emotion that you may take into consideration getting emotionally disturbed. Mm-hmm. So it's very important that we recognize that the quality of food that we have is the quality of life that we do gain, and the quality of thinking that we create is the quality of life that we'll get. And let's talk about why. Let's talk about emotion. When we become very irritable with our emotion, we literally turn our body into a place of dislike for our organs. It also becomes very acidic, like that acid doesn't contribute to well-being when it's not coming out in the right cycle for it to be used in the stomach. When it's not in the right cycle, it creates damages in the cell. Also, it also pulls into the cells bacteria develop in the cells, and also it makes the cells create haven for parasites and bacteria. That also lowers our capability to absorb proper nutrient, oxygen to our system. It also prevents our system to digest and absorb and eliminate. So these are the things that we can do to ourselves when we respond to our emotion with irritation rather than with intelligence, gentleness, sweetness.
Yeah. So, what are some ways then that we can practice
Yes.
To be more gentle and to be more centered in the way that we react to things?
Right.
So like when he's talking about being irritable, it's like when something doesn't go our way or we're not meeting some expectation, then when we're not balanced, our reaction is that of anxiety and frustration, and we're going to one extreme or the other of the emotional spectrum. But when we're able to remain calm in adversity, as Greg always says, then we can better be able to not only see the solutions, but you're able to see with clarity and see your solutions because when you're calm, you're not irritating the body and you're not allowing it to become more acidic, and so you have better clarity with your thinking. And Greg can talk more about how the acidity works.
Yes. Yes.
With the thinking and
Right.
how the emotion then
works,
even creates the acidity in the body,
right,
and of course in the breast too.
Right. So let's, as Ashley was talking about, the effects of acidity in the brain. When we become so emotional, our brain cells start to produce acid, and this acid base also creates distortion for our nerve transmitters. And so the seat of consciousness no longer function as good as it should. So one of the simple ways is to learn to be at ease with adversity. And when we say ease, meaning even if you may look easy outside, but something uneasy is going inside, that's not true to the body. So you have to learn to be true inside and outside. And that level of calmness brings you to betterment of your true self. Look at life in its finest and most accurate quality. So that is one aspect. In terms of how we overwork ourselves, we tend to have a way of moving too much work and not knowing that the extreme in too much work is just as dangerous as not too much work. So we want to acquire a level of mental fortitude that teaches us how to have accuracy in our movement and in our rest. They complement each other. You rest because it's going to regenerate your movement. You move because it's going to give you rest. Mm-hmm. So in harmony, how we move and posture. When we are sad, if we can keep a more balanced posture, your mind will be able to, and body, mental and physical center will be able to re-coordinate you back into harmony. So that aspect is very important. Nutritionally, the way we eat, if we don't eat on time, we will create a lot of acid digestion into the system, getting into the blood. So what will happen is that the blood quality will drop and the blood function will fall. Along with that, acidity carries a lot of fungus and parasite when the system is not being properly maintained. And from that, you have a lot of deficiency being created in that state. Another thing, you also have problem with just your mental state. Yeah.
Greg, how is acidity formed in the body?
Okay.
You did mention how if you become more irritable, then you're creating acidity in the brain.
Yes.
And I know you create acidity in your blood as well.
Right.
So like in the simplest way, like okay, you explain.
Okay.
Yeah.
When we become very tense, and when we become very tense, our body become lacking in oxygen. And when our body become lacking in oxygen, our acid level increase. Mm-hmm. And also the way we have to produce energy through a fermented way. That fermented way creates a lot of acid and sugar in the body, which also contributes to the growth of yeast and bacteria in the system. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the lack of oxygen throws off your pH balance.
Right.
So for those who don't know, like we have a balance in the body of on a scale of alkalinity and acidity. And when you're in balance, then your pH is at about a 7.
They're evenly balanced, they function very balanced together. And that helps your circulation to propel itself very well in the system. Mm-hmm.
So different. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. Sorry.
So as you're talking about nutrition,
yes,
then different foods have varying levels of acidity and alkalinity.
Yes.
So the aim is to have a diet that suits your body's pH, and it's so important to explore that because there's no one diet for everybody. But foods that are rich in chlorophyll, like your dark leafy greens and your vegetables and your fruits, they're more on the alkaline side of the scale.
Right.
And your meat and your dairy are on the more acidic end of the scale.
And also, one other thing is that with dairy, the way it breaks down into the stomach, it also creates fermentation. So you have gases releasing in the stomach, which also creates problem with the liver. Mm. So the liver now will not give the level of function that it needs to give to the blood and neutralize the different areas that it has to work with. So you find that you will also get headaches coming from that. Mm. And you'll also get irritation around, you'll feel extremely warm, hot, miserably hot inside because of the acidity in the body. You'll have skin irritation. You'll also have fatigue because there's too much acid in the blood and therefore there's too much acid in the muscle. So the muscle cannot digest it too much. So it creates the muscle, in terms of the muscle recuperating from any exercise, it is very slow in doing that.
So how does the acidity and then the lack of oxygen and the creation to foster bacteria then create breast cancer or breast ailments.
Yeah, but one other thing is that when in the breast area, the tissues are not able to absorb proper nutrient, it's not able to eliminate waste. Then what you have building up is waste building up with bacteria, and then you then will end up with an infection, you know. And so that then now becomes a major problem because the circulation around the infection is very high. And so therefore you may get medication, but that medication can't reach it because it's blocked out from the hardness, the sediments that are in the area. So some of the things that one would do is to also massaging of the breast is very important. And I know everybody's wearing the bone bar nowadays. It's a style. But if you do, make sure that you massage the breast, especially underneath the breast, where the irritation of the bone bar causes hardening or density in that area. So massage it.
And this is for men and women.
Yes. Because the breast plays a very important role in regulating our hormones, breast and nipple. And so we should also always maintain care with it. Because vitality, when the breast has good vitality, the reproductive organs have good vitality. So we must maintain our breasts and keep it youthful and shiny.
Yeah. Yes. So how are the breasts and the genitals connected?
In terms of
anatomy?
In terms of the hormones, the glands, it's the breast and the glands and the reproductive system are all interrelated. When you notice when there's the time for your period, the breast becomes tender and you get various, and when there is you're having a child, the breast becomes yeah. So it plays a very important role in terms of modifying hormone balance and stimulating the reproductive system. When a mother has a child, and after childbirth, the womb is very much larger than before. But once the child starts to suck on the breast, the womb contracts back to its normal state.
Wow.
It's very important that breast care and breast function is kept.
Yeah.
Because it keeps the womb well. And the heavier the womb is the more complication you'll get because it will fall out of position and create problem in terms of wanting to urine or even going to the bathroom, passing your stool. So these are very important things that you learn, internal exercises that keep the system balanced and strong.
And also, we spoke about diet and we spoke about emotional regulation. So what are, can we just take them through some breathing and talk about how deep breathing can work with regulating your emotions?
Okay, yeah. Just deep breathing and also keeping still. So learning how to just exercise, moving the diaphragm, the navel in and out will stimulate the ovaries, the testicles. It will stimulate the adrenal, it will stimulate the kidneys. These are very important organs, and the pancreas and the liver. So just by breathing in and pulling in will do a lot to keep our body in shape and keep the digestive system and elimination system very well. The embryonic breathing is very important because it helps you to bring energy or life force to the body, which helps to give energy to all the energy center in the body. So when the navel area is kept flexible, That pulse around the navel area feeds all the other organs in the body. So when that pulse is kept flexible and balanced, you very good functional organs function. It's very important
because it is the original pulse.
It is the original pulse, and that pulse is a pulse that gave the egg that pulsation, and it is right in the navel. And so it functioned even before the heart started pumping.
Wow.
So once the navel area is kept well, as one of my teacher would say, if the feet start to get cold and the stomach start to get hard and the mind start to get hot, we're out of it. So just always observe to see if when you're in a situation, you get very tight in your stomach. You're not doing something great there. You're taking away the life force away from yourself in that situation.
You want to have a cool head, soft stomach,
yes,
and warm feet.
Very important. Very important.
So a little bit about the embryonic breathing.
Right.
So you can open your palms.
Yes. And you want to learn how to pull your navel inward.
To your spine.
When you pull in, you breathe in and you breathe in and you just release that breath very gently. You also pull up the perineal muscle. You pull it up very gently, not hard, very gently. And that keeps the energy to stay into the gut. What you really want to do is but it is your mind that you use to put your energy down there. So you focus between the navel and behind the navel. You focus in between and take your mind there. You just gently breathe. Hold it for a second, maybe about 5 seconds, and just. So doing that will give some flexibility and give energy to the stomach. It's more than that, but going into other areas will take a little time to explain.
And so also doing that then will revitalize your cells.
Yes.
Which will help to revitalize, go ahead.
Which will really help to regenerate good quality back into our system.
Any free radical cells or cancerous cells, deep breathing can actually regenerate those malfunctioning cells.
Right. Another thing is that also when you do that breathing, it brings a mental center and a physical center. And the center is very important for thinking and doing. Because once your physical go to a certain range, you have your intelligence to say this is how far it must go and how it should go and why it should go and what it should do. So that breathing is very important. People physical and mental centered.
And how does it connect with being more still and calm in regulating the emotions that you would have, the patterns that you would have created?
Right, because what happens, it's a little bit much deeper than what we see. When the center is still, it connects to the brain via the way of the spinal column. Now, when that energy, that life force, remember this is a life force of brilliance and intelligence. It will go to the brain, and the more energy you have, when it goes to the brain has more capability to think and complete itself in thinking accurate. So without the physical, the brain can't work. The physical energy, the brain can't work. But when the brain has enough physical energy, it can complete tasks in clear thinking.
Okay. So how does that connect to like you becoming very angry or very sad or very irritable about an event or circumstance.
Right. All right.
Which then would cause ailments in the body, like breast cancer.
Breast cancer. Well, again, the moment you become sad, you slow the circulation. Once the circulation is slowed up, you now start to retain waste. Once you start to retain waste, you also start to increase on the bacterial level. Just by being sad, just by being angry, just by putting yourself in a negative mode, you also slow up the system, but you also start to make your nervous system produce negative energy to the organs, in which the organs start to now become irritated and become very sick.
Like what I want to clarify is how does stillness help us to dissipate these patterns?
Right. Well, stillness, again, as we mentioned, once the physical center comes back to the mental center, it now has a center which can coordinate what to do, how to do, when to do, why to do. So our physical intelligence gets purified.
Oh, so what you're saying is that these patterns of emotional reactions, that the mind will help to start to allow us to gain control and create new patterns.
A new pattern. Yes.
And then it would also help you to strengthen your
weaknesses.
Yes, like in the areas of being able to be still first,
right,
and to be calm. So your first reaction isn't just frustration and anger or sadness.
Right.
Your first reaction would be to first be still.
Be still. And why so? Being still allows you to establish yourself in the root of consciousness, which purifies any situation into good being.
Mm-hmm.
So, when you react with calmness, you're allowing consciousness to paint over itself on the mental state of your being and your physical state, and also the breath. Mm-hmm. So it's very important that we understand that purification in our speech, thinking, and doing comes by allowing ourselves to be much more calmer when we're exercising our duty in speaking, thinking, and doing.
And we can actually bring our consciousness into our cells in the body as well, right, to again revitalize any maladaptive cells.
Yes.
That would create something like a cancerous tumor.
Right. Yes.
Can you just describe like what is consciousness?
Okay, consciousness.
In the way that we're talking about it right now.
Well, consciousness is all that gives us awareness to doing what to do, how to do, when to do, and where to do. That aspect comes into, and let's speak about the mind and body. Right. The body only acts, the mind feels. The intellect, which regulates how the mind moves, the mind feeling, the mind sensation, has to gain its intelligence from consciousness. So that part of the mind, that faculty of the mind, which tells you how to do, what to do, when to do, and where to do, is really the function of the consciousness, the soul, purifying the way of the physical and mental state. That conscious plane is really that. So when we learn how to, as consciousness, the calmer we are, one of the strange things about consciousness, the best way to get to it is not by the gross world. When we start to pull ourselves away from the attachment of the world, and we go inward. And when we say inward, meaning going to the core of our inner being, but to travel to the core of our inner being is when we become more still. The more still you become, is the deeper you become. From the nothingness can give us everything. That is the subtle world of brilliance and intelligence. And that's when we become more stiller in our reaction, we allow consciousness to direct our physical action. When we allow our physical behavior calmly, we allow consciousness to direct our physical behavior much clearer, which purifies any obstacle, any situation. And that is very important that we always remember to get to that.
So, consciousness, which exists in us.
And everywhere.
Right, so it's everywhere.
Yes.
Right? I think for a person who hasn't experienced this,
right,
or doesn't practice stillness a lot,
yes,
it might be difficult for them to grasp. Like what is like how is this consciousness then like different, or this state different from like
the gross world,
or yes, like how I am currently. So, so there's states of frequency, right, and vibration. Can you expound a little bit on that?
Okay.
And then kind of tie it into because these are very broad concepts, yes, and they're all interconnected.
Yes.
So sometimes it's difficult to tie everything back in. Right. And we were talking about how then being more still gets you into that vibration of your being that is the real intelligence, and where we can really heal our mind, body, and soul.
Right. All right. I always like to use this when you see two animals together fighting. You notice that they really get very rough by roaring at each other and the more they become, is the less they understand. You can see that they don't even understand. You lose your awareness. It's the same thing happens to us because the physical body has no intelligence. It only has minus and plus. It needs a mind to tell it to do. And the mind will allow you to listen to your consciousness, the intellect. But if you learn to go with your feeling more than your thinking, you will lose the ability to grasp this subtle indicator of how to do things, what you do, why you should do it. So calmness is very important. That even when you're smiling and speaking, you speak with a level of calmness and sweetness. Why? Because wisdom walks very easily on your speaking when you're gentle. And that wisdom doesn't mean weakness, it means internal strength, which is everlasting and ever sure and ever strong. And so we learn how that when we're speaking, the more we become purifying in our action, we will use the gross, but the gross will become more beveled, smooth in expression for any situation. It's very important that we where the mental and the physical is always in harmony. So the real aim of consciousness is to purify the physical into responding in a spiritual, purified way. It's best by understanding that we be very gentle, disciplined in our speech, discipline our thinking, and discipline in how we speak. Speak with love. It allows us to go to the core of our inner being, realize everything that is needed to be realized. And that's why it's very important that our thinking, our speaking, our doing allows us to go back to the core of our being, inner being, which gives us the power to realize what is needed to be done in the right. Very important.
I think people are generally like using these words, so when we think of gentleness,
Yes.
then we would associate it with this softness or that. And in society, softness can be seen as a weakness when you're up against a more aggressive force.
Yes. Yes.
So, but really, softness can be stronger than erratic behavior, yes. Aggression.
Yes. And comparing, what should we compare it with? Let's look at, I guess we have a society of footballers. And let's look at one of the top footballers in the world. That's swiftness, that's smoothness in executing goals, into making things happening. Mm-hmm. That is subtlety. Mm-hmm. That is powerful best. And sometimes when you see them make a shot to the goal, it's just mystically fast. Mm-hmm. Smooth, not rough, but accurate. Mm-hmm. That is the ability we have if we use our mind in a gentle way, in a calm and loving way.
We also wanted to talk about the environment and how the environment being conducive to our being will help us to prevent as well as heal cancer.
Yes. Let's say improper air flow in a house can contribute to the demise of your well-being when you're in a state of ill health with breast cancer. Also, the position of your house, when it's getting proper sunlight, is very important. We are not much different from the plants we may think. The sun rises and we rise. The sun sets and we sleep. So we need to be in a position, our house needs to be in a position where when the sun rises, we rise, we feel it, the vibration and the reverberation of that energy moving through the house, Also, you want to have a house where if you are exposed to mold and dust, then it can also contribute to your ability not able to eat well. Because the mold will go into the blood. It will also create scarring of the cell, and it will also create blockages. And it will also create mineral deficiency in the system. So that is very important that our environment also in terms of sound. If you're having a certain frequency, it will break down your cells into weak. So good sounds, harmonious sounds will bring your cell level back to normality. In terms of, also we see that we paint our house every year. It's for a reason. It's to keep that energy, that positive energy, vibrating and reverberating inside, which contributes to your well-being too. So having a house and having a house that is livable, you live here and you don't go over there. That house becomes like a coffin because the energy still and it becomes there.
Okay, I see. There's no flow.
No flow.
No.
So you must always live in a house that is functional.
So for a person who is at a later stage in cancer, then it's better for them to be in more of a nature environment harmonious environment than just to be
in a home where it's very low in terms of vibration. You need positive vibration, which will give yourselves life too. We tend to think that life only comes based on your inwardness, but also outwardness. It keeps the cells alive. So a positive vibration is good. Sleeping is also important. Your sleeping quality is very important so that your body also, because if you oversleep, you'll get acidity. If you undersleep, you'll get acidity. Now, acidity contributes to mineral deficiency. And when the cells are weak, the cell doesn't have the capability to stand against diseases. And so when it doesn't have that capability, you also lose your brain function. So bad nutrition, bad environment will also make you lose your brain function. You would say, but I could think like this. I used to have clear thoughts. Sometimes it's your blood function. And if your blood function is off, that means your cell function is down.
So I think a lot of people have trouble sleeping.
Okay.
I notice the more I speak to people, it's the more I realize just how much sleeping, digestion are two huge parts of like what we see in society. So how can we create better sleep
patterns? All right, one of the main things is how we process our daily thoughts. If when you're interacting in your daily activity, your thought process are irritated and it's not completed, that stays there and goes into your dream cycle. And because it wasn't completed, it goes into your dream cycle, not passing through it, but it stays there and creates the same effect upon the body during that period. Completing your thoughts are very important because if you have incomplete thought, you won't have proper sleeping during your dream period. That incomplete process of thinking becomes continuous in your dream, and what it does, it harass your body. Because the only time we really have conscious control is when we're awake. So whatever mood that we put ourselves in during that daytime, as a mood, that dream pattern is going to come out on us during the sleep time and harass us in a way that sometimes we can even hurt ourselves in our sleep.
So dreaming then, like the nature of dreams. So I know, or we know that the delta state, where you usually don't dream, like that is your most restful state. So if you find that you're dreaming all the time,
if you find that you're dreaming all the time, you may be that you're out of balance. Maybe it could be one of the organs not functioning as well as it should. So it starts to make you produce more dream than normal that you should. So that is one aspect. The other aspect is that when we suppress our thoughts, it doesn't go away like that. The only way we can leave our thoughts and let it leave us in harmony is to be in peace. So even though we may have a conflict, we do not deal with the conflict with irritation. Because what that does is to recode the unconscious mind, to bring it back to us in that state while we're sleeping. We have no control to regulate it when we're sleeping. We're going to react. This is the way we react when we're in our conscious.
So again, purifying the thoughts and the emotions.
Yeah. So purifying yourself in the physicality helps to purify your rest and helps you to get back to your inner core of being.
Yeah, and I don't think we have been taught how important sleep is.
Sleep is, yes.
In the depth of it.
Yes.
So on the surface, in a Western world, we're taught, 8 hours of sleep, will help your body to like recharge for the day, But there's so much more to it than that.
Yeah, because like when we get proper sleep, that's when our hormone system produce proper balance of hormone in our system. And the hormone plays a very important part in our thinking, in our cells function, in our cell quality. It prevents the cells from being easily getting infected. So proper sleep is very important. It prevents for women, it prevents them from having balanced hormone, even though the hormone may drop. But once it drops with a balanced state, you function okay. You may not have the most youthful thing, but you function just as near to your best quality. Right? So this sleeping pattern is very important.
And then that would help to prevent any cancerous cells from forming, and also to regulate, like if you already have imbalanced hormones, then having regular sleep patterns would help to regulate back your hormones.
Another thing, as you mentioned, that just the food for thought. When we become irritable, we reduce our hormone balance.
Right.
Just by being. So sometimes you may hear a female say, "What? My period not working well this week or this month." It's really check how often you've been very irritable. And it may look simple, but after a while you become so attached to this behavior that you think it's normal.
Or what we call, people say stress.
Stress. But you think it's normal. But what it is really doing is building you up for early day. You don't need that. You're here to serve a good, loving purpose to mankind. But this simple way of getting irritable, sometimes it may not be expressed outward, but inward you're irritated. It still affects your well-being. And even more so, it affects it much more because it's done on a very subtle level where after a while you won't see it, but it's happening inside. For you to even see it, you have to keep still to become aware of, oh, it's really happening. So we can acquire states that we learn to hurt ourselves and we appreciate it. And that is what we don't want. So being happy with our emotion helps to contribute to our well-being and keep the hormone well in our system.
Yeah.
Another area that we must always remember, never ever throw away your sensual energy. That energy is the energy of life and growth and regrowth. Don't matter what age you are, you should always shine that energy inside and outside. You don't have to use it in a very loose way, but use it in a way that it nourishes your well-being. So our sensuality is very important. If you're having a cancer, still keep your sensuality because it keeps the hormone
Mhm.
When we suppress that,
Your sensual energy is your life force energy.
Is your life force.
You know, if we really think about it, you know, that is how we all came into being.
Right.
So it's our creative energy. It's how we are created and how we create. So sensual energy and the cultivation of it is not just through having sex, but also through your enthusiasm for life.
Yes, yes, yes. And so when we use it to nourish what we're thinking about, it generates ingenuity. Very important. Very, very important. You know, having that delight. And it also makes you glow. It makes you glow. When you look at somebody who is very sensually happy, they glow. Without even anything happening, they are just in a glowing state because it's a really positive energy. So yes. Yes.
So we also want to touch on the topic of breast massage.
Breast massage. Well, it's very important that you massage your breast. Why? Especially nowadays, because we eat so much foods, and all of these foods have a lot of growth hormones. So what is happening is that the area that's supposed to have 12 cells are having 2 billion cells. Now, you know that if you go into a vehicle that is overcrowded, you can't breathe. The same thing is happening in the breast, but the cell area becomes so dense, and when there is density, unnatural density in the air, you're prone to having infection because the circulation is slowed up, and the absorption and the digestion and elimination process of the cell function is being depleted. So these are areas. So what you want to do is to learn to allow the circulation to move and learn to get the cells, because the cells are so dense there, the cells become very stiff, party. And that stiffness, when you notice, when somebody dies, they become very stiff. Why should your breast become stiff? It becomes stiff, it says that it has lost its vitality. Once it loses vitality, it carries a lot of function to your well-being. So you want to learn how to massage your breast. Wherever there is not any stiffness in the breast, you want to learn how to gently rub it until it disappears out. Because it's just accumulation of sediments or cell waste in the area. And if there's accumulation of cell waste in the area, bacteria will come there. And if the bacteria comes, cancer will come. You want also, when you massage it, you will also bring forth a fresh load of oxygen to nourish the cells and life force. It's very important that we massage, but not just the breast, but also around the breast, the chest plate, the rib cage, underneath. The armpit should be massaged because they all contribute to the well-being of the breast from there. It's very important that we do that.
And your areola and your nipples.
Right. So you squeeze these areas, stretch these areas so that you can keep movement in it, which will keep fresh flow of blood and fluid in the air, which will regenerate and re-moisture the air again. And another thing that we must also look, if there's scratching on the nipples, if the nipples are scratching too much, it tells you that your pH level is off. You need to go and regulate the pH level where the balance of the pH level has become normal, where it won't entertain any fungal properties around. And so you take it for granted. That's how the breast get infected. And then the cancer start to grow in the system. Stretching of the learning how to stretch. There are preventive ways we can learn how to stretch the breast area with breathing. with the breathing and help the energy. Because what happened?
Like doing yoga poses.
Yoga poses.
Open your chest open your hips.
Right,
as
right.
well.
Mm-hmm. And it may seem simple, but just as how the car would take in gas, fresh energy, and release the waste energy through the exhaust, when you stretch your hands and stretch your breast area, you allow the energy to come through the hands and move through. So the waste energy is flow through the hands and allow fresh energy to come in the system. So our hands are very much connected to our.
Yes. All all the nerves and the veins in our hands are connected to our heart.
Right, yes.
But it's actually like if you put your hands together like this, you're actually completing a circuit.
Right, yes. It's very important that we recognize that we keep the chest area. If we are in our work, that we keep our hands still, tight, it slows down the circulation, which will accumulate more hardening or cyst or mass in the air. It's very important that if you get home, at least even jerk the breast up. Jerk them up. Some people don't. And
to look at them.
And look at.
So you can see if there's any, as you were saying before, any fungal.
Anything.
Any bumps around. Right. Any field.
Right. Because sometimes you notice with age when you get in age, when you were young, the nipples look like a fresh new leaf coming out. It's glowing and it's shiny. But when you get in age, it doesn't happen to everybody. But you notice a nipple becomes very dull. It says that circulation is slow. What you need to do is just keep massaging, keep the blood flow going, and you see that glow in it. So it's very important that we keep the glow of the breast, because once the glow of the breast is there, it's the glow of the reproductive system. Very important. And it keeps a hormone balance. And you can use the breast to regulate your menstrual cycle. It's very important that we understand breathing and consciousness. Another thing that is popular now is the bra with the bone, but it tends to affect a very important pressure point that relates to the liver and the breast, which regulates condition between menstrual cycle and the breast. So if you wear it, you should make sure that you massage the breast underneath where the breast is, and keep that area loose and back to its normal state, because it will help to keep your cycle balanced. So these are pressure points that we need to know how to touch them, how to massage them, and keep the ear. And also the space underneath the breast. Right. If you want to learn how to open them with your fingers, you can always open them. So that
you feel your ribs.
Your ribs, yeah. And you open these spaces and give more life force coming in and blood. Another thing that affects the breast area, if you're negative, the sternum, the breastplate, into retain, limp, waist, and it just builds up there and it becomes very sensitive. And the breast becomes sensitive. So when we're having a rough day at work, just take your hand and rub the breastplate and remove that excess waste from the system, and it will go. So being aware of the breast.
So here you mean?
Yes,
just right. In between.
Just in between, yeah. And if you find any sensitive spot, just go in between and rub it, and it will disappear. A good thing to use on the breast, because I've seen people young women, who there is hardening in the breast because of improper nutrition. And for that reason, And also, sometimes it's also the imbalance from hormones coming from the parents. So they will get hardening from that situation. But in that space, you can learn to, castor oil is very important because it can break down a lot of mass, hardening mass. So if you see that you're having hardening areas in the breast, start to put on the castor oil. We have to poultice on the area and to break it down. That way painful. It's very important that you, because if you can prevent how fast this growth will grow, it's best to do. It's best to do it because in the end, it's all about taking care of your lovely self, which is important all the time. Yeah, very important.
Thank you so much, Greg.
You're welcome. Just also become aware of your nipples. You have a nipple, you must pull on them to give them back life. The more sensitive you become, is the more life you get back into the nipple. So very important that we remember to take care of ourselves and keep ourselves warm and tender. You know, so very important. And if you have any handbag that you wear, but squeeze down these main arteries that give blood to the ear. And if you realize that here is very tough, start to change your handbag around and massage the area until that hardness disappears from the breast area. Very important. And if there's hardening underneath the rib cage, it says that this is what happened. The circulation on the left side represents what is happening on the left side. Circulation on the right side represents what is happening on the right. So if the circulation is slowed here, it's going to slow up here. So keep the stomach soft, keep the mind cool, and keep the feet warm.
Yes.
It's very important.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome, and thank you all to listening. And I hope I may say something upwards.
Of course, we're so grateful for you sharing your knowledge with us and what you have learned. And I know that anybody will watching this will benefit, listening to this will benefit from what we have shared here. And I know I have. So thank you so much.
Well, let's us all thank God because it's not my knowledge, and we have to just thank Him because all that we have is because of it. So we give thanks to you, Him, and everybody. Thanks.
Thanks.